Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you to Anon for creating the opportunity for the debate and Gordon MacDonald in bringing it to the Chamber here. Alcohol is one of these unusual drugs, because that is what it is, in that its effect on people is quite varied. For some people, the lowering of inhibitions, the increasing in confidence, leads to an increase in creativity. For others, that lowering of inhibitions and increasing confidence leads into far less productive areas. And of course, excess use of alcohol, leading in due course to addiction, is destructive of family life, is destructive of relationships, and ultimately destructive of the addict themselves. My father was a country GP, and like all GPs, he had his catalogue of alcoholics. And in the 1950s and early 60s, he never felt that he had the kind of remedies at his disposal that really delivered the kind of results that he sought. When I was old enough to drive, provided some pastoral support to some of his alcoholics, and others in the family did the same. But the outcomes were not really particularly good. When I became a manager of staff, some hundreds of staff in the 1970s, 80s and onwards, I, of course, once again met people who were suffering from the consequences of alcohol misuse. But by this time, the existence of support groups such as Al-Anon, the professional support that was available, had transformed the outcomes for those who were affected by alcohol, so that I can say that the majority of people that we were able to refer to professional services and connect to support groups had substantially better outcomes. We understand addictions better now than we used to. They come in many forms. Alcohol is merely one of them. But of course, let's not imagine this is a new problem. The Canadian historian T.C. Smout, in his Social History of Scotland, describes how in the mid-1800s, in a village in East Lothian, there was one pub for every 14 inhabitants in that village. And that tells you something about the place of alcohol in that community. And about that time, it was recognised in the Swedish town of Gothenburg that the evils of drink were affecting wider society. And the community in Gothenburg got together and opened their own pub so that the profits from the trade could be recycled into more useful activities. And to this day, in various towns across Scotland, you will still see pubs called the Goth. And that comes from the Gothenburg experiment that came from Sweden. Drink has probably seen genetic changes, particularly in England, where beer was a substitute for water because there was not good supplies of potable water in many of our cities, and tolerance of alcohol has grown. But the trouble is, as others less adapted have used alcohol, we've seen a disproportionate effect on that. Relationships are affected not just by the immediate consumption of alcohol, but the change in behaviours that there are. People become secretive about their addiction, and that cuts them off from their families and friends. So groups like Al-Anon are absolutely vital to preserving and growing relationships, supporting people with addiction. I hope, Presiding Officer, that they continue to support communities across Scotland and beyond.